All right, here we are back again with another Word on the Street. This is version 91 of the podcast, and we got Tobias the Owl on the podcast today, and we'll learn why I said it like Tobias the Owl, because it's actually Elijah's on the podcast today, and his band is called Tobias the Owl, and sometimes he is called Tobias the Owl. So we'll learn all the nuances of that, as well as his new CDs putting out, which on August 12th he's going to be releasing at the Tractor Tavern. Got a great lineup, so you should check that out. And then we'll just get into this podcast, shall we? Keep this intro short, like I'm trying to do these days. And also, if you have the time, if you make it to the end of this podcast, that's when I'll tell you more about what's going on in the world of the podcast, such as the 100th episode party. Going to be at the substation on August 20th. I'll sneak that in right here. WOTSpodcast.com is the website for the podcast. Of course, it's on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and all those other great podcast places. And also just streaming off the web at that email address I just told you. So let's, as I like to say, do this. Elijah,
how's it going?
Good. Oh, one thing.
We're live?
We're going to do it, right?
Okay.
I said, are we ready?
Yeah.
The one thing about the microphone is just kind of talk, like, just stay in that general area. You don't have to lean in or anything like that.
Okay.
How are you?
Good. I am good.
Tell me what you did today.
We played music at Pride Festival, at the Pride Parade. So where the parade ended was where we were situated.
Okay.
Oh, that's not true at all. We were at Westlake Center, so that's not. It was like sort of mid-parade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where did the parade? I thought did the parade run through Capitol Hill too, or where does the parade run? Was it all downtown?
I don't know. I probably should know the rest of the route. Yeah, it was. I know it went all the way to Seattle Center, so it's a long.
Okay, so it's downtown. It's like
probably craniocaudally. It had a long. It was a long axis.
Yeah. Was it fun?
Yeah. It was very inspirational.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who asked you to play? Were you asked to play? Or
it was Gigs for You.
Oh, one of those.
They set up. Yeah.
Gigs
so,
for You.
Yeah.
Do you play Gigs for You gigs often?
Not that often, but
all.
I like doing it when I do it. The last one I did was the first one. The first one of the year for me was the Occidental Park one.
Okay.
They have music there at Occidental Park.
Okay.
So I did that, and that was my first one of the year. And then I did a bunch last year, but I think they kind of had like a contraction during the winter because they don't have a lot of spaces to do gigs. So now that it's summertime, I think they're like bringing me into it more.
Yeah. And I have to, I don't know, commend's not the right word, but I have to thank, I guess, or I'm not sure what the right word is, but you're the second person that got here by bus. And I'm like, yeah, right on. Like the commitment to being on Word on the Street is pretty rad to me. It's like,
yeah, well, I get free bus passes.
Oh, you do?
Through UW, yeah. So that may be part of the.
So you're going to school then?
Oh no, I'm a professor.
Oh, you're a professor.
I'm a professor at the University
Okay,
of
great.
Washington. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
you thought I was a student?
I don't know, man. I'm thinking about going back to school. You know, it's like, So you're a professor. So that's one thing we can talk about. We have to talk about your new album that you're making.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we also, I know you're. Well, I want to figure out how long you've been playing in the local scene, kind of thing. You're one of the in my kind of influence, you're one of the singer-songwriter kind of circle that happens. There's like, St. John, there's
St. John,
there's a bunch of others. I mean, there's a ton of them that do this kind of circuit that kind of happens. Now we'll kind of talk about that, your singer-songwriter career, and then you're also involved with like the Acoustic Fest. What is that called?
Yeah, I founded the Olympia Acoustic Festival, or I co-founded that, and I co-founded the Seattle Acoustic Festival, and I organized the Seattle Acoustic Festival with Paul Maurer.
Okay.
Paul's kind of like does part of it, I do part of it, and we both kind of share the Olympia Acoustic Festival and the Seattle Acoustic Festival.
We can talk about how that all started. Yeah. And then you do stuff with Folklife too?
Yeah, I'm also the vice president of the board. I'm one of 3 vice presidents of the board of directors of Folklife.
So there's just tons of stuff.
I do a lot of stuff.
And there's probably more stuff that we could talk about that I don't even know about.
I'm a dancer on weekends.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not.
No?
I'm just kidding. No. That would be too much time. No, I'm an editor for I'm an editor for 2 medical journals, and I review for like 3 other medical journals.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a medical doctor too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. My kid's grandfather is the doctor, a family practice
Oh, cool.
doctor.
Cool.
We
Yeah.
won't have to go into that. Do you know this person thing?
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't know him. Like I
You
do.
might
Like
know him.
I
Yeah.
read MRIs
Okay.
mostly, so that like it's a fairly narrow field.
Okay.
So the other doctors that I know are just people that I talk on the phone to.
Oh, sure.
I'm like really interested in MR physics and medical physics in general, but like yeah, MRI specifically, and I kind of consider that my specialty. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's start with, I like to just be in random orders of things, but let's start with the Tobias the Owl, the new record, and kind of get a sense of what that's all about and when's it coming out, and just everything we can think of about the new record.
Yes, yeah, I would love that. It's called Every Eye is a Universe. It's going to be out on August 11th is the actual CD release show, which is going to be at the Tractor. And they've been super, by the way. They've been so awesome. Mm-hmm. And with the Banner Days and the Local Strangers.
Okay, yeah.
And they're both incredible bands.
Yeah,
And
I haven't heard Local Strangers yet, but Banner Days, I've heard their online stuff, and I'm really digging on what I heard.
Yeah, they're super.
Did you put the lineup together?
Not really.
Not really.
The guy from the Tractor, Greg Garcia, did most of it. But I mean, I kind of like helped and had input, and then he'd be like, "Oh, what about this person?" I'd be like, "Yeah, they're good."
Okay.
Yeah.
So he knew that it was your CD release party?
He knew it was my CD release. Actually, he offered to host the CD release.
Okay.
He's kind of been a big, I don't want to say he's a fan, but he's been like a really good supporter.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because he's like, he's a nice guy and everything, but like, it's interesting for a booker to be like more proactive in supporting me. Like he was like, "Oh, I've heard your stuff online and I really dig your stuff. We should get you into the Tractor." And I was like, "Wow, I can't even believe you know who I am." That's
well,
really
you fit.
Nice.
You definitely fit. I think what the Tractor wants to have in terms of sound. Well, let's define. What do you consider the band's sound, or what you're going for?
I don't know. That is a good question, and a lot of people ask me that, and I guess I don't have a sound. I feel like I have maybe an ethos, but it's not like I listen to bands and they sound great, and so I want to sound like them.
Yeah,
It's like it's not like that at all. It's more like I want to write songs that have like a lot of the ideas that I have for songs are really thick.
Yeah.
They're really sort of dense, and like so the songs are really pensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want to do is have songs that have tones that sort of carry that same weight.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of low end in a lot of the songs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like orchestral type sounding stuff in some of the songs. And then, I also like want to write songs that heal, right?
Okay.
So there are sort of ranges of frequencies and types of sounds that I find to be like more conducive to healing.
Okay.
And so thinking and healing are the things that drive the tone.
Sure. Sure, yeah. I can understand that. And then, I mean, at the core of it to me, though, is the singer-songwriter aspect, too. Do you feel that? Like,
yeah, oh yeah.
Like, because...
I mean, I write all the songs myself, and I'm kind of writing the songs. At least a big chunk of the songwriting is very solo.
Yeah.
It's a very isolated. You're just kind of by yourself with your instrument.
When did Tobias the Owl? Because you go by Tobias the Owl as a singer-songwriter and as a band, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Does it ever get confusing?
It does. Because everyone calls me Tobias, and I fail to correct anyone when they say that.
Yeah.
And I've sort of introduced myself as Tobias the Owl before.
Okay, sure.
And I'm like, does that sound pretentious or snooty if I'm like, I'm Tobias the Owl? Like, I don't know if that sounds weird to people.
Yeah, I go through the same thing with the Zim. I'm like...
Yeah.
Because my stage name and stuff is the Zim. And I'm like, just call me Zim. I like Zim a lot, so call me Zim.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't really say call me Owl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but Tobias is what probably people gravitate toward because that's an actual name.
Well, it did start off, Tobias the Owl started off as the band name.
Yeah.
Right? And the band was basically me and Scott Seaver, who's the drummer.
Okay.
And he's down in LA, right?
Okay.
So, and I'm here. So we do shows together, and he produces a lot of stuff, and he's really great to work with. But he's like, I'm down here, you're up there. If you want to play solo, that's cool. I don't really care. But anyways, the band sort of was myself and Scott.
Okay.
And then his career he's doing great now. He's producing a lot of stuff. and he's producing like Amy Mann's next album.
Oh wow, cool.
And he plays in the Both, which is Amy Mann and Ted Leo.
Oh okay.
And he toured with Tenacious D. And he played on the Flight of the Conchords album.
Wow, he's doing it.
He's doing great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, anyways, yeah, and he plays with like Jason Mraz, Pete Yorn, like all these guys. Yeah. So, anyways, he's super awesome. But he's down there and I'm up here.
So we know people that know people is what we're saying.
Yeah, and some of the like the first album we did was kind of like a postal service type thing.
Oh yeah.
So like,
well, okay, I didn't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like he and I collaborated a lot. So really, Tobias the Owl, I didn't really want me to be in. I didn't want it to be a singer-songwriter band.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with music is that there's like there's sort of like assumptions about this is the song. I want to know more about the person who wrote the song, which in some ways is less true in other artistic fields, right? If you write a book and you put it out, it's not as important who the author. Well, that's not true, but
I think that trend is changing now.
Yeah, that trend is changing.
I think with the internet, with the ability, like it's the same thing with movies, right? I think for a long time, like you're getting directors that are stars, as much of a star of the movie as where I think that's a trend that's happening more now because you have more access to them, to the people behind the thing. I don't know, maybe. Do you agree?
No, I totally agree, and I guess my point is that if I lived in an ideal world, the songs would exist independently of me. Yeah. Right? And so there wouldn't be any question of like.
So why do you want that? Why do you want it to live?
Because I feel like there's a more honest and pure interaction that people have with music if they don't sort of attach it to the person who wrote the song. So I had a really interesting experience where like I played a show. And two people came up to me after I played the music. And one of them, it was really interesting because one of them said, wow, I can tell how strong you are with God and the Spirit of Jesus. And he's really inside of you and really moving your hand when you write those songs. And I was like, I didn't agree, but I was like, oh, thank you very much. It really means a lot to me that you say that. And, and then another person right after that came up to me and was like, oh, I can tell that you're very like disillusioned with like religion, and I'm an atheist too, and I can tell that there's like you're very much an atheist by listening to your songs. And I said the same thing. I said thank you, and neither one of them got the meaning right, but in a way they both got it right. And I thought it was really neat that the song existed in their mental space as two totally different songs. So I think that would be the ideal situation for me, is to write the songs, to release the songs into the world, and then for me as the songwriter to disappear, so that there was no more, there really was no more songwriter. The songs just become sort of independent.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the choice of the listener in a lot of ways. Because I think you hear the common theme of music is people do exactly what you just described. They put their own meaning on the songs. And then there's sometimes those people that want to go deeper and discover the songwriter as well and get attached to that aspect of it as well. But I think generally people do just hear the songs the way they want to and make the meaning for them. And I think that's if you can do that for somebody, if you can get them thinking or get them responding to a song, then yay.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like I analogize it to like a guitar string, right?
Sure.
In order to create vibration and then fundamental frequencies, because you can do you can play the note of the string or the harmonics.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, it has to be fixed at 2 points.
Yeah.
So maybe the songwriter should be half of it, and the listener should be the other half, and there should be a space between, so that
I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah. All right, we're done. No, you mentioned the Postal Service too. You said your first. I think I listened to a few tracks. How many albums have you done with Tobias the Owl?
Just one, just our EP, and then the new one that's coming out. So 2, I guess.
Okay, so that EP one is the one you kind of said you described as a little bit of Postal Service sounding.
Yeah, that was like Postal Service. It's in its methodology, really. Yeah. Right, because I'm up here, and then other people are down there that I'm not interacting with, but we're like collaborating electronically. So
but I also hear. Well, I hear in the new album because I got to hear it.
You're one of the few people who's heard it, actually. Yeah.
I hear like electronic devices in it, like and I don't know, maybe I hope I'm right, but I hear like synth sounds and the like layerings like that and things.
Yeah, there's some synthy stuff. There's like a lot of it is like just a piano that I do a lot of stuff with, so it sounds very synthy. And then like Andrew D.B. Jocelyn did a lot of the strings.
Okay.
So, but when I heard his string sections back, it sounds like a synth. It sounds like a really...
That might be what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's like very orchestral what he did. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's walk back. Let's step back a little bit. So you decided to record a new album. So let's just nerd out about this album process and see what you went through, like how you picked the songs, you know, how you picked the band to put together. Was the band already together before you recorded, or?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, you know, the Tobias The Owl band has like 18 people in it, right? But it's me and like one or two or three or four or five other people. Yeah. So like almost every show that we've played has had a slightly different lineup.
Yeah.
So, but they're all great musicians and they all know the songs really well. So it's easy to just be like, you know, to pick up new people. And, yeah.
So when you wrote this album, how did you pick the people you wanted to be on the album?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say every song sort of evolved in a different way.
Okay.
So there were songs where I was like, oh, I want this person to do this one thing on this song.
Sure.
And there was another song that I'd be like, oh, I want this other person to do this other thing on the song. And like Andrew and I we've never played live together even. So, and that's Andrew Jocelyn who did a lot of the strings on the album. But I've heard him play. We've done shows together like that have been like me and Andrew's band has played and then I've played.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but some songs I was like, oh, I really want him to do this thing on the song. So we'll probably play together at some point live. But yeah, but it just kind of organically developed that I was like, what does this song need? What does this song need?
And how do you go about actually physically recording? Do you lay down your guitar track first, or like where do you go to record and do all that kind of stuff?
I have a small closet that I sleep in and have the microphone set up in, and like I just have Logic and a laptop. And that's where I do about maybe 90% of it, 95% of it. And then for the rest of it, we kind of went into the studio and we said, okay, now let's add strings, let's add guitars.
Okay.
But like the vocals and guitar and piano and keyboard parts were all like recorded pretty much in a closet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What studio did you pick to?
Oh, well, London Bridge did a lot of the mixing and the overtracking, the overdubbing. So like, or whatever. Is that overdubbing?
Yeah, sure.
It's overdubbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but London Bridge Studio.
Okay, yeah, it's right here.
Yeah. Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Are we in that same neighborhood?
Yeah, totally. We can throw a rock and hit it. It's like right out the window there, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize we're so close to it.
I pick up their Wi-Fi sometimes. Like, I mean, I can't use it.
It's that close, really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. Yeah. Do you go there?
No, I haven't been down there yet. I'm trying to. I don't know how to like osmosely get the signal that, hey, we're on the street, happens right here. We should like talk to each other eventually.
Oh yeah, that'd be really cool actually. Yeah, you guys should do some collaboration.
Yeah.
Well, they did the 52-52 thing.
Oh, what was that?
So they had a different single that they released with a different artist every week of the year for like a year straight.
Oh, okay.
So
52 weeks in a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So they so that's actually how I got hooked up with that studio and with London Tone Music.
Okay.
They chose one of my songs, or they chose my submission, and then they were like, we want to do a different song that we build from scratch.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. So in one night I recorded like 12 songs, just like a scratch recording, just to send to them. And then and then I went into the studio, and then when I saw what it was all about, I was like, wow, it's really intense, because like, it's like where Mary Lambert recorded and Lane Staley and like Chris Cornell and all these other people who like, and I'm singing into the same microphone that they all used. Yeah. So it was pretty intense. And I went with who played guitar, Aaron Stamen. He's a neurologist.
Okay.
And we were just kind of nerding out in there, being in like the same studio where all these great albums from our youth were recorded. But anyways, that's how I got hooked up with that studio. So,
What song was that? Where can we find that song? Or where?
oh, that's on the EP.
Oh, it's on
That's
there.
on the Painting Zeros by Your Name EP, which is the last album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you just kind of incorporated it with that
Yeah,
collection of songs.
And then, so they kind of remixed the last album, the EP, and they did Painting No Light, which is on Painting Zeros by Your Name.
Yeah.
And that was the last EP that we did. And then for the new EP, they were kind of like, it would just kind of logically follow to use them for the mixing and mastering. And they were also very, very respectful of what is kind of a bit of a complicated and intricate and very personal process of writing songs that I have.
Yeah.
So they weren't like, let's get like a band and rock this song out. It was like very much like, what does this song call for? Okay, now what does this song call for? And like it was, each song got, I feel like, its own space to evolve.
Cool. Cool. So you were happy with London Bridge?
Oh yeah, they've been really, really cool and really great to work with. And despite the fact that like there are a lot of like really big people that record there, right? And despite that, I felt like they're really all about giving like the smaller artists like the same amount of respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Give them a 5-star Yelp review, right?
Yes. yeah. If I went on Yelp.
Yeah. So what else? How do you plan to release the album in terms of are you going to make any physical copies? Or are you just doing digital? What's your...
Yeah, we're going to have like download cards and actual copies of the album, like CDs.
You're doing CDs? Okay.
Yeah, and cassette tapes. We're going to have cassette tapes.
Yeah. Why did you choose to do some cassette tapes?
I don't know. I feel like they're coming back, and I never liked the CD format.
Okay, why not?
There's something about like having like the fact that like digital data like in CD format decays over time.
Okay.
Even though it's a very slow decay rate, you can't listen to the same CDs like 50 years from now, right?
Okay.
And maybe cassette tapes will decay too, but there's something about listening to the album sequentially. We thought about vinyl too.
Like almost forcing. I mean, yeah.
You have to digest it as an album.
Yeah. Which doesn't happen very much anymore.
It doesn't happen very much anymore. But there's a lot of like young kids that are into our music, and for some reason, and I feel like they're very much into like. I've met a lot of fans of our music who are like, very anti like streaming and making mixes. They're really like, I want to digest this full album as an album. I want to digest it as a listening experience and listen to the songs sequentially. And in a perfect world, I would love it if that's how everyone listened to our music. If they all, sat down and every time they heard it in one listen, like went through all the songs.
Yeah. So was it when you put your album together? That must have been an important piece to like align these songs in an order that you felt really good about.
Yeah.
How long did it take to figure out what was there? Is your album, is it conceptual at all like that, or are the songs?
There are definitely conceptual components about going from the there's definitely like conceptual components that sort of created like ex post facto the order of songs. So the order of songs was in some ways necessitated by, not in all cases, but in most cases it was sort of necessitated by the way we were saying things in each song.
Okay,
It formed sort of a logical concatenation of messages.
Yeah, I got really into, like, I've been doing a lot of listening of music lately because of word on the street and what I'm doing. And one of the things that's become apparent to me is how I want to digest music. And it aligns with what you're saying. It's like whenever I hear of a new artist that has an album, and sometimes you go to Bandcamp or wherever, and they set the play song to be like their third or fourth, a different song than their first song.
Oh, interesting.
They'll set it, and I hit stop right away, and I put it to the first song because I want to hear what, like, as if it was an album that I'm putting on.
Yeah.
I want to hear what they're trying to tell me with their very first notes, and then like go through that in that process, kind of like that, And so it got me thinking a lot about my own music and how to present my own music, and it's like, what am I saying when the first thing you hear, what is that first thing you hear, And it's like, it's pretty cool to think about, and it makes you just realize that as well. There's people aren't listening to albums the same way anymore,
Yeah.
It's like one song. It's like even hard. I don't know. It's even hard to get people to listen to one song all the way through with the internet and the way it works. It's like you send out a song, and if you don't grab them within the first 5 seconds of the song, they're clicking through it. They're not gonna sit and.
Yeah, you're right, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like there were so many albums from my youth, from my childhood, that like I had to listen to the whole way through several times before I sort of got the album, before the album resonated with me. Yeah. I had to give it at least a few chances and let it, and I mean, there's kind of like, a lot of the album is about string theory, or Every Eye is a Universe album.
Okay.
And that's not the sort of thing that you can just walk up to somebody and go, okay, here's what string theory is about. You have to sort of walk them through several steps.
Yeah.
Let's say this. Now let's say this. Now, then therefore this, and then therefore this.
Yeah.
So there's like sort of a concatenation almost that's syllogistic, where you have like individual arguments that form a cohesive message when you string them together.
Yeah. So is that kind of the concept of the album? Like,
yeah, there's a lot of that in the album that, like, if you don't really get the message from the first song, I don't want to say that, because then I'm like saying you have to listen to the whole thing, or else don't listen to it at all. But
yeah.
I really want people to listen to whatever songs that move them. But but there is a sort of sequential message that I at least hope, if you digest the whole album the whole way through, is a greater message than the sum of the individual parts, which are the individual messages of the songs.
Yeah. I've always felt, I mean, for me personally, I've always felt that's the case for my show. It's like, I'm almost like, don't just listen to my songs. You have to come to my show and see what I do on stage, as well as, because then you'll understand my songs if you understand how I present them, more than just the song itself. But that's a whole another step. You have to go out of your house and like, that's hard to get people to do sometimes.
It's sometimes very difficult. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about one of the songs. Let's drop in one of the songs from the recording, I guess.
Yeah.
You want to do that now?
Sure. That sounds super.
Okay, which one are you thinking about?
Let's do The Wind and the Echo. That's kind of the featured first track of the album. So it's also the first song.
Okay.
But I think it sets up the album in a lot of ways. And actually, UK Songwriting Magazine released that song, and they had they just wrote some very kind things about the song and about the songwriting experience and about that song specifically. And we're also working on a music video for that song right now, which I'm really excited about. Yeah.
Oh, we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else about this song that we can mention?
The song is called The Wind and the Echo.
Yeah.
The album is called Every Eye is a Universe.
Okay.
So the song sets up a recurring theme in the album, which is the way messages are received and the way they resonate and the way they fade away.
Okay.
And that's sort of like, the wind is what erases sonic waveforms, really, right? It's air motion that's like sort of pseudo-randomized that blows through a space that erases a waveform. Like if you've ever sung in a windy environment, you kind of get that. And then the echo is kind of what persists. So that's what the song is about. So that's the name of the song, is The Wind and the Echo. And it's also about finding what there are some messages that are going to resonate with you and find meaning and find a home in your spirit. And there are some that will just pass right through you. And the song is about what becomes home and what becomes transience.
Cool. So The Wind and the Echo.
Yeah.
There was never a time enough, though we spent years on end in love. sheltered moments that we share in the home that we made. And even when our lives were straight, there was one thing that we made. And even when I am far across borders, you will always be my home. I'll be floating like wind on the ocean. I'll hear the echoes of your voice. All the world is fading fast, and our bricks and mortar never last. And with every half-life that we pass, we are further away. But even when our life astray, there will be one thing that remains. And even when I am far across borders, you will always be my home. I'll be floating like wind on the ocean. I'll hear the echoes of your voice. Though I may travel far, I will never be gone. You will always be my home.
Before the song, you mentioned you're making a video for that song. When do you expect, when is that coming out? And
like September. And I'm super excited about the video. It's going to be CGI animation.
Oh, okay. Who's doing that for you? Or
it's the guys who did. They're called Arcana Studios, and they're next out. They're putting out 2 movies, and I think our song is going to be on the end credits for one of the movies.
Oh, cool.
And it's one is sort of a steampunk version of the Wizards of Oz, of the Wizard of Oz, and it's called I think it's called Steam Engines of Oz. And the other movie that they're putting out is it's Howard Lovecraft, and it's like a child's tale of H.P. Lovecraft. So it's like the stories of H.P. Lovecraft from like a children's tale. So anyways, they're a really wonderful studio. They're putting out a movie with DreamWorks, and I'm really excited to be working with them. And they're working with a lot of great vocal talent. Christopher Plummer, Bill Paxton. And their animation director heard the songs and like really resonated with The Wind and the Echo. And I kind of had a storyline for a music video that they were interested in, like, kind of taking as something that, like, segues well into their movie.
Sure.
And then they kind of reimagined that storyline, and then we kind of worked together and collaborated on what I think is a really neat storyline for a really neat video, and it's going to be all animated. And I've seen some of the still frames from it. I'm really excited about it.
Cool. So in September, we'll all get to see that.
Yeah, coming out soon.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've also mentioned that you had some press. How did you go about? Did you how many people did you send your like advance of your album out to? And did you get how was the feedback and how was getting that for you?
I sent the album out to maybe 8 or 9 people.
Oh, not too many. Really.
Yeah, I think it went to Northwest Music Scene.
Okay.
It went to you, and then it went to just some friends of mine that do like podcasts or do like musical stuff in like Tacoma or in Seattle or in Portland.
Well, how did it get to Europe? You said it was the
UK Songwriting Magazine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't send it to them.
Oh,
Good Cop PR is like I have some friends. So London Tone Music basically has relationships with like PR companies and like licensing people and.
Okay.
So I think it's getting out there. The music's getting out there, but Good Cop PR I think works with London Tone Music.
Okay.
They're a PR company that does Record Store Day.
Sure.
You know, the event. Yeah.
So did you hire a group to do that, or is this for this album, or was that for that earlier?
That's all through London Tone. No, the London Tone's putting out the next album too.
Oh, okay.
They're putting out Every Eye Is a Universe.
So did you hire that, or is there a label, London Tone?
London Tone's a label.
Okay.
It's basically the label that is housed at London Bridge Studio.
Oh, okay. Just putting the piece, and they agreed to put your album out essentially.
Yeah. So the album's coming out on the record label.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which is neat. Yeah.
And that all manifested because of that first relationship.
Because of that first 52 by 52 song. Yeah.
And they got behind you and just wanted to help continue to support you. That's
and they've been absolutely like really very supportive and very enthusiastic. But yeah.
Cool. Well, anything else you want to mention about the album itself, or the CD release show, or the album release show, that you want people to know about?
I'm excited for people to hear this album. I think it's a quantum leap above anything else I've done previously.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be. I hope people like it. Yeah.
Do you know? Is the band set at this moment that you are going to be bringing with you to the Tractor?
I should probably say yes to that, but no, we don't have the set list, and I think it may change a little bit.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people that kind of did little parts on this album.
Sure.
So I would like the show to sort of reflect that. So we'll probably have a bunch of people come up and like sing with us, or
try to bring the people
like
that
guest tracks on
that were actually on the album.
Exactly. Yeah.
And okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we look forward to that for sure.
Yeah.
So let's roll back the clock and just get to know Elijah and what you're all about, where you're from, and just kind of all that kind of good stuff. So tell us, you're Canadian, right?
Did you want to play this song?
We did.
Oh, we did. Yes.
Yeah, so
okay.
The magic of radio.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's in post. I cut the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was a point at which we left an opening there.
No,
because we kind of kept going. Okay,
yeah,
all right. Okay. Sorry.
I didn't do a good job of explaining how I did that, but it's all good.
No, you mentioned okay. Illusion. Yeah. I just broke the fourth wall.
Yeah, it's great, man. There's no rules here on Word on the Street. There's no big deal. But you were mentioning you just told me when you got here you were from Canada, right? Is that where you're born,
Morocco.
Morocco. Okay.
And then Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long were you in Morocco, and what brought you to Canada?
Let me see. I was like 3 or 4 years old, and then we went to Haifa for a while. And then we were in Canada, and then we moved around a bunch after that.
Your family?
That was with my family.
Yeah. But where do you identify your growing up?
Toronto is probably the one city that I spent the most of my childhood in.
Okay, childhood, like, what's the age? Did you go to high school in Toronto? Or?
No, I left Toronto when I was 13 or 14.
Okay.
And then I left home when I was like 15, and then I kind of traveled around for a while.
Oh, like by yourself? Or?
Yeah, I had an interesting journey.
Well, tell me about it.
Well, like I was hitchhiking back and forth between like Houston and LA.
Okay.
And then I would stop sort of intermittently and get a job as like a dishwasher or something for a while.
Why were you hitchhiking? What was your purpose for traveling around? Just to explore?
To gain wisdom.
Gain.
It was really, I felt like I needed to understand things that I didn't previously understand. I needed to be alone to think about things.
Do you feel like you found some things out, or?
Yeah, I mean, maybe wisdom is like that I left to gain wisdom.
Yeah.
Did I find wisdom? Maybe not. But I definitely did find perspective.
Okay.
And I think that perspective that I found was broad enough that it's at least a prerequisite for gaining any wisdom.
Yeah. And what did your family think about this? Did you like
that goes I don't know how much people want to know about my, because it was a rough family situation.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, yeah.
So okay, well that explains that. Well, where did music come into play? Like, when did you start playing? Is guitar your first instrument, your main instrument, or?
Yeah, guitar. I was like really into bass, and I was really into piano. I used to like, when I was traveling, there was one city that I actually it was while I was in Orange County. There's what's it called, the Crystal Cathedral. It's like the biggest church in the United States. It's a massive, massive church.
Okay.
So, anyways, they have a bunch of buildings, and each building has a piano in it. So I noticed that like I could go to their, like, this is like one of the first times I really got into playing music. They would leave one of their buildings unlocked. Yeah. I don't know how much I'm incriminating myself with this story, but and I would just go in there and play piano for like hours.
What is it called? Statute of limitations, right? I'm sure we're way past it. They can't do anything.
Is that breaking and entering? I mean, they left it was on a Sunday, and they left the building unlocked.
It was a church, right?
It was a church,
yeah.
And they left the building unlocked.
Sunday unlocked. They want people to
yeah,
find a sanctuary, right?
Yeah, and I didn't like steal money out of their coffers or anything. It wasn't like that bad. But I would sit and play their piano, and it was like this really beautiful resonant room.
Yeah,
and like that was like probably one of the most formative musical experiences that I had as an early age. And then we
Did you play it? Did you already know how to play it? Or
no, I didn't know anything. I was
just kind of like messing around.
I was sitting there messing around, and it was just, if you have the right space, you could just play a single note, and it really sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm sure what I was doing would not sound good to anyone, but it was like the formative events of like me starting to learn, like, oh, these are notes that fit together, and I can make things sound tonally different by hitting these keys.
And how sound affects you personally, like hearing in that space.
That's true.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And then at some point I settled down and I started going to college. And then when I was in college, I got a guitar for the first time. And I was terrible at it. I was like such a bad guitarist. Like my neighbors would be like, "Oh, who was that playing?" And I'd be like, "Oh, that was me." Yeah, and they'd be like, "Oh, you were not good. You were not a good. Yeah, you should not make any music ever again." And they were right at probably, I guess, at the time. But hopefully, I've gotten better now to the point that I can at least fool people into thinking that I know what I'm doing. But yeah, and so that's when I got a guitar for the first time. And
was that in college then? You said?
That was in college, yeah. Okay. So I started very late in life.
Well, I'm curious. Like you were wandering around.
Wandering around, yeah.
What kind of like was the catalyst for you feeling like the need to settle down and go to college and do that? Like,
that's actually a funny story, because I was in El Paso washing dishes. Yeah. And I was actually really pretty content being a dishwasher. And there were these guys who used to come to I was washing dishes at a Denny's of all places. And there were these guys that used to come in there who were like really, really very intelligent. And I think one of them was like a military strategist, because there's like a military base out there. So he would bring me these books on like quantum physics and stuff. Like the Quantum Code by Pagels, and he would like then kind of quiz me about it. And I don't even know how we got into sort of talking about quantum physics, but he actually was like, yeah, you should go to college and you should study this stuff. So I went to college and decided to be a physics major. And I always wanted to be a theoretical physicist. And then I kind of strayed off that course and just went to medical school, and that was just through a series of unrelated haphazard events that kind of aligned themselves so that I became a doctor. Yeah.
Where did you go to college? Where was your first?
UT El Paso.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I ended up transferring to UT in Austin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how'd you make your way to Seattle?
Oh, that's a longer story. Let me see. Because once I went to medical school, you apply to medical school and then you get in wherever they take you, and then you apply to residency and you get in wherever they take you, and then you apply to fellowship, and it's the same thing. So, so I ended up. So my journey took me from University of Texas to Washington University in St. Louis, and then University of California. So I was at UCLA, and I went to UC Irvine, and then I was at UCLA, which was interesting because I went back to Orange County after that. And then I went to University of Southern California. I was a professor there for many years. And then I retired from medicine. And then I was giving lectures at UW. So when I decided to kind of come out of retirement and be a full-time doctor again, I was kind of, I already had a relationship with the people at UW. And I applied there for a job because they had a job opening.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I know looking back on life, sometimes we're condensing your life into really, 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so it seems like you're doing a lot of stuff, but you're also like developing your music throughout that time frame as well. And it seems like how'd you find the time to, or what did music do for you during it? Because that seems like you were doing a lot of stuff, and to go through medical school takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, a lot of commitment. And yet you're developing your musical career or your knowledge or whatever at the same time, and get to what I'm getting to is you get to a point where you eventually want to share it. Like, how often did you perform throughout that span of time? And
very, very seldomly.
Yeah.
So really what happened is when I retired from medicine from USC, well, I mean, it's kind of a sad story. I was diagnosed with leukemia.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm fine now, so
Sure.
maybe I should say that so it doesn't sound as tragic. But anyways, I was getting chemotherapy, right? And I knew I was going to be very sick for a while, so I decided to play a show, and it was kind of like a bucket list sort of thing. Honestly,
Sure.
because I knew I'd be sick for a while after this. So the show that I played was with Jonah Tolchin, right? And then after the show, Jonah was like, "Oh, that last song that you played, I really like that." He's like, "Could you mind if I cover that song? Would that be okay?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely." And I just sent him a recording of it, and I said, "Here you go. Here's the words. Here's the lyrics." And then I got really sick for like a good few months. And while I was sick, Jonah got signed to a pretty big record label, right? And his producer called me, and his producer was Marvin Etzioni, who produced like the Counting Crows and Toad the Wet Sprocket, and he's a really, really gifted musician. He played mandolin with the Dixie Chicks. Really, really very inspirational, very motivational guy, very positive too. So anyways, in the time that I was sick, Jonah had kind of started covering my song, and then he was releasing his album on a label, and then the label decided to include my song on his album. Yeah. And then Jonah sang it as a duet with John McCauley from Deer Tick.
Yeah.
So they're like a really big band in Providence, Rhode Island.
Sure.
So anyways, so when I convalesced, I felt like there was all this sort of momentum behind this song that I had written. And then Marvin was like, who produced Jonah's album, was like, let's make an album together. And that's how Painting Zeros by Your Name got started.
Okay.
And then I felt like I had all this sort of momentum, so I wanted to do music in a way that was more concerted, maybe more serious and more proactive.
Okay.
So I took a more deliberate role in the musical community after that. But I think if I hadn't gotten sick, I would have just been trucking along being a medical doctor.
Well, what resonates the most for me in your music is your voice, is your singing, and I really like that. I gravitate toward that the most out of everything I heard.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, because you said you messed around with the piano, you're discovering that, you're playing guitar. Because sometimes it's hard to actually sing. It's hard to decide to say, I'm going to sing over this at the same time.
Yeah.
And how did that manifest for you in that process?
That's kind of funny too, because I remember there was this woman in high school that I was like really in love with, and I was telling her about a song, and I remember she was like, I was like, oh, you know that song that goes ah da 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 da, and I like sang like part of a verse of the song. Oh, I even remember the song actually. It was "They Might Be Giants,"
Yeah, okay.
Anna Ing.
Okay.
Right. This was a long, long time ago. But anyways, I told her this is how that song goes, and she was like, stop, don't sing. You should never sing again in front of anyone ever. And so I never sang again. So it wasn't until like really the show with Jonah that I started singing again.
Oh, okay.
Really. And then, I was always singing so that the songs would have like a form, because words are a big part of the music that I write.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like there's messages that are hard to convey with just the notes themselves alone. At least for me, probably not for other people. But anyway, so yeah, the singing really, and now hearing people say, oh, I really like the sound of your voice, is a really weird thing for me, because to me, my voice doesn't sound good at all, and I think it's just that you live with a reality for long enough that it becomes sort of ingrained in you. So
yeah, no, I remember personally as well. I remember the first time that I heard anybody say you have a really good voice, singing voice, because I never got complimented on my voice. Even maybe not. I was never told never to sing again, but it was never like, oh, I want to hear you sing. But then when I actually took voice lessons, and that was like, that like changed. That was the best. There was about a year I got voice lessons, and they were gifted to me, and it was like the best experience.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And then after that, I started singing just more often, and more people would come up and go, oh man, you have a really nice singing voice, and that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'd like stop in my tracks going, they didn't mention the guitar. They mentioned they talked about my singing voice. Oh my gosh, maybe they were drunk. I don't know, but it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that from a bunch of people now that they really like my voice.
Yeah.
And it's a, like I said, I wouldn't have ever thought that would be something that I could accomplish.
Yeah, the first time, so like I'll tell you my discovery of Tobias the Owl and Elijah was CJ Kinton, right? Did her book thing, and that I had her on the podcast.
Oh, okay, cool.
And she sent over like the songs that she had on it. But I'd heard of your name. I saw you now as I was digging around with the local music scene and trying to discover things. It was like I saw your name as a part of other people's names. I saw it there, but I didn't really investigate the music deeply. But then I listened through her album that she put together for the book, and one of your songs hit, like I don't remember which one it was, but
it was No Light, actually. It was the song off the London Tone, the 5252.
And I was like, oh, I need to learn more about Tobias the Owl because of that. Because it's really, for me as well, like I'm a huge fan of Kimo Meraki.
Oh, I love Kimo.
And to me, it had a very similar texture and sound that he has as well. And I was like, oh, I can understand this, and I like this, and it took me to the place that I like. So that's how I discovered you. And then of course we kept
we kept crossing paths.
Crossing paths and making it happen.
No, that's a very flattering story. That's a very flattering comparison to Kimo. He's wonderful.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
He has the album too, and he's messaged me some flattering stuff about it.
Cool.
And it was like, I was really flattered by what he said, because to me, he's like sort of really a serious musician.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
he's amazing. I love him. Let's talk a little bit about the Acoustic Fest stuff and how that started, and like how people can get involved with it and all that kind of stuff. When was the first Acoustic Fest?
The first one was in Olympia, and that was like 4 years ago.
Okay,
3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. So so I had done this thing called the Olympia Music Awards. I'd been involved with that. And then that just was not sustainable because it was too much work. So we kind of pared that down to a festival.
Okay.
And the whole purpose of doing like an acoustic festival for me was there's a lot of like shows that I go to that are just, this is going to make me sound really old, but they're just really loud.
Yeah.
And it's like you go to bars and like, there's such a loud din of just noise that's ambient. Mm-hmm. And then you try and like force a song through that. And you really have to have like, a band that's really got like, firing on all 6 cylinders. Mm-hmm. And to me that, I think about the musical experiences that I've had where I've seen other people perform and I've been really moved. Like Gabriel Wolfchild, right? Great musician. I remember I saw him in this literally muddy living room, with like a few millimeters of water like throughout the whole floor, like to varying degrees of thickness based on how wobbly the floor was. It was like this muddy room, no amplification. And he just stood in front of us and just played songs. And it was so moving and so powerful that I was like, sometimes, it's like when you hear a politician speak, and they're like, in the United States of America, and they're shouting like the whole time, you know. And then like you hear other people speak and they're like, listen, I think we should do this because this is the right thing to do. And they're just talking in a very mellow voice. And I think sometimes there's a call for both voices. And I think it's just like the same thing with music. Like sometimes it's nice to experience music in situations where you're not like totally being like blown out of the back wall of the room by like how loud the kick drum is. And it's I mean, nothing against any kind of loud music, but I really wanted to showcase musicians and artists and environments where a whisper is as loud as thunder, know? And that's really those are some of the resonant musical experiences that I've had. And that's really, I wanted to give kind of a form and a presence to musical experiences that are sort of more soft and intimate. And that's the whole genesis of doing acoustic festivals. Now we do one in Olympia and we do one in Seattle.
All right, and it's been going for 4 years?
Yeah, the Seattle one is now on its 3rd year. The Olympia one is on its 4th year now.
Do you always host it in the same spot, or is it rotate around?
The Olympia one is rotated. Actually, they've both rotated, yeah. We're going back to the same spot for the Seattle Acoustic Festival. And I think the Seattle Acoustic Festival has found its home there.
Okay.
And that's All Pilgrims Christian Church. Okay. And it's the last weekend in August. And it's just 3 stages, very nice, like acoustically and sonically insulated spaces that are like, one's outside in a garden, one is in the cathedral space, and one's in this like kind of room that they have for music.
Yeah.
And we don't have any religious affiliation with our events, but it's just sort of, these are like nice sounding rooms. So, and I think the space kind of lends itself to people who want to take in music in an environment that's more gentle. And
have you felt, is it a successful event? Is it feel like, are you happy with the progression of it? And
I mean, it's been bigger and bigger every year. It's getting to the point now that it's a little too big for me to keep wrangling, right? It's become it's taken on so much of a life of its own.
How many people, you said there's one other person that works with you?
Yeah, Paul, well, there's a lot of people that do it, but Paul Maurer is the other main sort of organizer and founder. But yeah, it's like the first year we did the Seattle Acoustic Festival, we were in a smaller space, and then we kind of expanded to a bigger space. And now we're expanding to 3 days this year, and we just had 1 day last year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it's going to be...
And are people finding out about it and asking to play, or what's the growth mainly consist of?
I think that there's sort of a fan base interest in it.
Okay.
So like, every year we're getting more people who are hearing about it and who want to be involved with it. Both musicians, but also music listeners. So that's nice. And
if people want to get involved with it, are you open to more support for it as well? Like people want to be behind the scenes and help out?
Oh yeah, definitely. We could use a few more volunteers.
How can people get in touch with it? And
Seattle Acoustic Fest at Gmail.
Okay.
We have a website too, which is seattleacousticfestival.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in the end of summer, you said, right?
Yeah, it's the last weekend of August.
Do they both happen around the same time?
No, the Olympia one is in March, and the Seattle one is in August. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And then the one other thing we mentioned at the top that you're involved with is the folk life thing. Remind me again what role you play with the folk life.
I am one of 3 vice presidents of the board of directors of folk life.
What does that mean?
Folk life is such a huge behemoth.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. I mean, to me, like, I've been involved with folk life for like 2 going on 3 years, and I'm still learning. Like, I don't even know all the groups that are involved with folk life. I mean, it's still like and it's everything. It's like dance, art. There's like a huge fiber arts community that I first started getting involved with this year, really.
Sure.
That just makes stuff that's out of different fibers.
That's my degree.
Oh,
Fiber arts.
really?
Yeah, University of
interesting.
Washington.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even know.
Yeah, I'll show you some of my art.
Do you come to Folk Life?
I have in the past. I used to be one of those kids that, I don't know what it's like now, but when I was in high school, by the fountain, there'd be kids playing hacky sack like all day long. I was one of those kids. And then then that was in high school. Then after high school, when I started playing in bands outside in the city, we would busk by the fountain all day long. So it was
cool,
like, yeah. We for about three or so years, I would do that. Then it got too crazy because it's like me and my friend Kevin Saka, we went down and he would play drums and I'd play saxophone, and it was just us for a long time.
Oh wow!
And maybe a couple other people, but not too many. But by like the third year of us doing that, it was like 20 people. It was chaos of like everybody trying to busk together, and it was like it was not as fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think all of these things that are happening, there's a lot of great stuff happening in the Seattle musical community. But as great as everything is that's happening here, there's still like sort of a huge underlying stress.
Yeah.
Which is that, the community is invariably becoming less. It's sort of a region that is less conducive to the formation of really great musical events and really great musical experiences. Mm-hmm. I think it's just because it's getting so expensive.
Yeah.
And I think we're attracting like businesses like Amazon that don't necessarily value any sort of creative community.
Well, it's interesting. Well, from my perspective, this is one of the things I've discovered from the podcast, but it works in a bigger umbrella too. It really depends on the lens that you look at whatever you're looking at through. So you're saying this now that it's not conducive, but if you look at it, if you move over to the left 3 steps and you look at it through another lens, you could be deceived thinking that there's a lot of support and a lot of great artistic and musical.
That's true, yeah. There's so many great supporters and so many great allies. I feel like the artistic and creative communities of this region are at risk.
Yeah.
And I feel like even though there are great resources, and I don't want to undercut any of the wonderful contributions that people have made, I see so many incredible, really inspirational contributions to the artistic communities, not just being made by artists, but supporters of the arts, through my activities with Folk Life, that it's really totally inspirational. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I recognize that there are stressors and risks, and that it's like we're being fed by this really big artery, but I can see the atherosclerotic plaques in the artery. If you don't mind me mixing a weird medical metaphor with the artistic community. And so at any moment, one of those plaques could rupture, and the musical community would lose its life source. Yeah. So I think there are definitely a lot of... I've seen so much since I've been here of like people who are just totally supportive of the arts, both to my music and just the things that I see in the community around me. And so I feel really, really humbled and really inspired and really blessed to be in this region.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I see where things could go, and I would like to be a part of the things that make this a better musical community.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it, one of the things that like I wonder what the solution is, right? I wonder how to help it. I mean, I feel like a part of the issue is, raise the rising rent costs and things like that really breaks up the artist communities and really pushes it outside of the center of the city even farther and farther and farther. And that's one of the things. But do you see any solutions, or like what could help, like what do you see as a kind of a... Do you have any ideas around that?
I mean, I think there are things that we can do that are... I have a lot of ideas for improvement of like the musical community. Yeah. I think in some ways the economic stressors are so tremendous that if things keep going this way, it's just not going to be a great musical community like 30 years from now. Yeah. But like if for instance, CD sales, right? They've been really, really flat and dropping, and like the cost of purchasing any specific individual album has basically been the same for about 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you get a CD for like $10 or maybe $15, depending on where you buy it. And so while that mathematical reality is persistent, that music, the time and money that people spend on music is either flat or decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
The other reality is that economic inequality is on the rise, and it's on the rise in a very profound way that I don't think that's sustainable. So in some ways, there is no. I think we can always do things to make the community a little better, and we can always do things to foster up and coming artists. But I think there are certain trends that, if they persist unchecked, will
Yeah.
yeah.
It's hard to, like, one of the things I heard in that is it's hard to convince or change the paradigm, I guess you could say, of how the general public supports independent musicians.
That's yeah. Yeah.
And because it's like, we're, for the most part, people are expect to get music for free.
Absolutely,
The expectation is I can just download it somewhere for free. I don't need to pay for it. So there's like, from my perspective, there's either you have to try to change that conception, that paradigm, that idea, or you go, that's the way it is. What do I now need to do as a musician to create more for myself and just start thinking outside the box, start doing things that are different, unique. I mean, there's a trend nowadays with event-based shows is a big thing. It's like, which is a good thing, I think. You have to, like, shows that happen have to be event-oriented. It's not just a show that you just get up and play music anymore.
Yeah.
There's more to it, and like, how can we do that? And I think, and I hope, this is one of my hopes with Word on the Street, is not only I hope the musical communities, because there's lots of pockets of musical communities in Seattle, if we could start to bridge those pockets a little more and see how we can all work together more.
Yeah.
I think that'll help overall. But then also just looking at the big umbrella of artistic communities, it's like,
yes, absolutely.
There are a lot of communities reaching out and doing things together, but I think we could do an even better job and do more of things that we do together, find ways to work together more is really what I see as a potential. I don't know the answer of how to do that, but I just see there's an opportunity of us all working together more that would create more and make it more thriving. But I think in Seattle, the whole Seattle Freeze idea is real, and I believe it happens in the artistic community as well. And we get into our little pockets and we don't really look outside of our pocket. We don't want to. We're comfortable where we are. We're doing it, but sometimes you have to kind of put your neck out there a little bit and go, let me help this other community, and even if they're not just exactly like me, kind of thing. I don't know. There's ideas around there, and we could obviously talk for days probably about all those kind of things. But
I have an event coming up on September 1st with Daniel Blue at Access Gallery, and
with Katie Kirkchi as well.
Yeah, with Katie, yeah. And she and I are putting that together. And I really would like to grow that into a sight and sound festival.
Yeah.
And here's been my idea, is to like have musicians collaborating side by side with visual artists. Mm-hmm. So you have me playing a song and you have like a live painter right next to me, or you have somebody doing like a VJ demonstration, like a visual jockey, like as opposed to a DJ. And like you have people like doing dance and orchestrated movement in coordination with sound performers. I think that'd be a really neat experience. And so the first event that we're doing is September 1st, but I hope it grows into a sight and sound festival where you have visual artists and audio artists really kind of celebrating and sharing their craft together.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's one of the ways. I mean, I think there's a lot more opportunity for visual artists and musicians to do more together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happening in little ways, but because basically, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, every show that happens now and every night of the week could have a visual artist represented as well. Yeah. And be like some kind of like thing there. I mean, it just
or let's expand it. There's like great food stuff happening.
Exactly.
Seattle. Yeah. Why not? So I did a show at Capital Cider, and they had a drink that was based on my music.
Yeah.
And I've done shows at farms where it was like a farm to table food celebration of like this is food that you're eating that was grown 20 yards that way.
Yeah.
And then I would play songs about the food and about the earth and about the land. And so, yeah, I mean, food and, art and, let's get all five senses engaged.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Smells. I don't know.
I think
Are there any smell artists?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, food, I mean.
Food, yeah. A big part of tasting is olfactory. That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, all those are great. And I don't know, what I'm hearing through that too is just us as a community have to be willing to put in the work to do it. And it could mean a lot of things, and because we already know, and if you don't know this, you, the listener, if you don't know this, that it's like the amount of work the artist has to do just keeps getting bigger and bigger to be an artist. It's not good enough anymore just to do your craft. You have to line up the shows. You have to be your own booker.
Yeah.
You have to be your own promoter. You have to
be
a
business person.
Yeah. You have to be you have to record yourself. You have to and then social media. You have to learn how that all works. I mean, it just gets bigger and bigger. So it just means that there's more and more work. And now we're presenting this idea that you have to bring in more people, bring in more ideas. So it just means there's more work to be done if you really want to stand out, if you really want to create something. And I think that's the hang up. And I think a lot of people are they're used to their rhythm, they're used to their ways. They almost rather complain than be proactive and do something. It's like, so it's just I'm using this as an opportunity for like call to action. Just go like look, self-audit, go like, what are you doing? Is like the next show you playing, are you actually telling people about or not? It's like that's the bottom line of it, kind of in a lot of ways.
Shalita Burke is I don't know if you know her. She's a local musician. She's really wonderful.
Sure.
And she's actually Moroccan and French, so kind of similar ethnic background. But anyway, she she talks about being a musician as being a data scientist.
Oh yeah.
And it's a whole different perspective on music, like how and following the numbers, and how that gives you insights into like the creation of music and your artistry, and how that how your artistry can resonate with like what's happening from a data science perspective. And it's really very interesting. So it's a lot of different fields that you can get wrapped up in being a musician. I mean, I consider my music to be very informed by the realm of physics.
Cool. Well, we're over an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, so I want to wrap it up.
Sure.
So let's remind us when the release party is. Are there any last thoughts about your release party? You said
August 11th at the Tractor. The Banner Days and the Local Strangers are playing with us, and if you haven't heard them, they're absolutely wonderful. Like I know you said you haven't heard the Local Strangers. They're such a good pair of bands, and for us to be sharing our release with them is hugely, massively flattering to me. So I'm just so happy that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And thank you for being here today. This was awesome. This
It's been fun. Yeah.
Great conversation. I loved it. And also I have to thank you as well. I almost forgot, but you're playing for the 100th episode party.
Oh yeah, that's super awesome.
Of Word on the Street. That'll be at the substation on August 20th, so a week or so after your release. So, and you're just doing a duo set there.
Yeah.
It'll be scaled down.
Yeah.
There's
and Katie's going to be there too.
Yes.
And we're doing a whole bunch of stuff that like what's her name? Carrie, photographer.
Oh yeah, Kari. Well, I call her Kari.
Oh, okay.
But
Kari Taylor.
Yeah.
I've only traded emails with her. But
okay.
She's doing really neat stuff with musicians.
Yeah,
Didn't she do that Naked Artist?
Yeah, I was one of them.
Oh, you were one of the Naked Artists.
Yeah.
It's getting hot in here.
Nothing too risque. Just I was all covered. It's all good.
Do you want to have a segue into another song, or do we have time for another song?
Yeah. Totally have time for another song. So we'll do the last. What do you want to do for the last song?
We could do Paint My Love. That's the last track on the album.
Okay.
And it's kind of a nice segue into what we were talking about, because it's inspired by a lot of different things. One of the inspirations is really about the love that Jonah has for his partner.
Okay.
And the song was kind of written for their wedding, really. And then the other kind of impetus for the song is kind of my background in astrophysics.
Okay.
The Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way Galaxy are going to collide in about 2.5 million years. And when that happens, there's the Triangulum Galaxy, which is the M33 Galaxy, which, little trivia, is the galaxy where Star Wars and everything takes place. Right? So anyways, So when that collision happens, the third galaxy, the Triangulum galaxy, is going to pass through the wake of the two galaxies having collided that will be colliding with each other. And when that happens, when it passes through the wake of that explosion, that collision and expansion, it's going to have a wave of new star formation. So the song is called "Paint My Love," and it's about I will paint my love all the colors of the sky. And I think that's a good way to tie things that we were talking about together with the way different media can kind of come together and celebrate artistry in different ways, in ways that are collaborative and also in ways that potentiate each other. And it's also sort of like the rainbow of love as a metaphor is sort of a powerful part of what I saw today at the Pride Parade. So
awesome. Well, thank you again.
Sure.
Elijah, and we'll leave it with Paint My Love off of Every Eye is a Universe by Tobias the Owl. And as always, make sure come down and party at the Moon Tower.
You were young, you took my hand, you knew the days were slipping fast. Purple doves, they stole away and took all that we tried to grasp. And I will paint my Lord all the colors of the sky. And I will paint my Lord all the colors of the sky. And I will paint my Lord all the colors of the sky. But it's a white, white, white that I cry. And it's a white, white, white that I cry. That I cry. Glowing thread trace my path as I look backwards on the crack. The pale blue light of the dust reborn will signal out new life has come. And I will paint my Lord all the colors of the sky. And I will paint my Lord colors of the sky. And I will paint my Lord all the colors of the sky. But it's a white, white, white that I cry. And it's a white, white, white that I cry. That I cry.
All right, here we are at the end. Did you enjoy that version 91 of Word on the Street. Be sure to check out the website, WOTSpodcast.com. Like I said on the top, you can find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Spreaker, and probably a whole bunch of other places. iTunes is my favorite place for it, so hopefully if you have a moment, you can go over to the iTunes and post a rating and review. We did get another rating last week, but no more new reviews. So whenever I get a new review, I read them on the podcast. So I would read it right here. I would tell you what the review was. But I haven't got one for a while, and I've already read all the other ones. So we'll just keep on keeping on, shall we? The thing I need to mention, the only thing that's on the books really is Word on the Street's 100th episode party, 100 version recording party, as I'm calling it, at the substation on August 20th. We got it set up. We're playing at 5:30 is when the show starts. We're starting it off with our good friend of the podcast, DJ Boo. He's going to open it up, and then he's going to do a DJ set for 40 minutes or so. I don't know. And around 6:30, my band, the Zim and A-Rock, and Tobias The Owl, who was on this podcast, and Honey Mustard are going to do music in the round. So we'll trade off songs and talk about them and just have a good time and enjoy life. That's what I've been saying a lot, like enjoy life. It's really about enjoying life. So I'm going to be recording this whole process, and that part of it, the music in the round, is going to be the main podcast portion is what I'll publish. I'll probably publish a little bit of DJ Vu's set and a little bit of Crystal Desert, who's going to close out the event. And who knows what will happen on stage in terms of talking to people, what'll get captured in audio format that'll make good content for the podcast. But I imagine it will be very music heavy is what I'm thinking. I don't think there'll be as much conversation. Hopefully there'll be nuggets of things here and there. What I've been saying is the X factor in this whole thing is the fact that A-Rock will be with me and on stage. And when A-Rock is with me, all bets are off, because he's amazing and funny, and just he adds a lot to what we do as a band, and he'll add a lot to the conversation because he's just great. He's just like what I like to say, the X factor. So that'll be fun to see how that goes. We also have art. There'll be visual art representing the Katie Kirkchi, who was on the podcast, so you can check out her conversation from a couple months ago about, and then Kari Nicole Taylor, who was also on the podcast. So both of them are going to be down showing some of their artwork. And then also the substation said they want to have other people showing art too. So I don't know who they got, but they wanted more art involved. So hopefully those artists will actually be there. I don't know. I haven't been in contact with them. Maybe I should reach out to the substation and ask if they'll invite them to make sure they're there too. And then kind of my technical support team is going to be the Strive Creative Coalition. They're going to help make sure I actually record the podcast. So I have a few tools, my laptop and some other audio capturing devices that I'm just going to set them all up and take no chances, because I've already lost 2 podcasts that I've recorded just with the laptop. So I don't want that to happen ever again. So I'm going to be doing more redundant recording of the podcast from here on out. So there's that. The last thing, there's a couple other things, 2 other things I'll mention for now. I'd love it if you went over to YouTube, youtube.com/thezimvideo. That's my video channel. I've been posting more and more content on YouTube. One of the things I've been posting is what I call videos from my phone. And what those are is I try to capture one complete song of every local band I see live. And I'm up to like, I don't know, 20. I think that's a little bit high. Maybe 15 songs I've captured, and they're posted online on a playlist called Video from My Phone. So there's that. There's also my video journal, and that's kind of becoming more and more. I'm refining that even more, and I'm actually promoting it more. I switched over. I have a Facebook page that's just called The Zim. It has a capital T. I couldn't use a lowercase t, but it's just capital THE, no space, ZIM, capital ZIM. And so The Zim is my personal kind of The Zim Facebook like page that I'm posting those video journals on off of YouTube, and then I'm promoting those posts and pushing them out more because I'm talking more about what's going on in the scene. But one of the big things I talk about is I always spend a little bit or a lot of time, depending on what week it is, on just my reflection of the podcast, because I listen back to these podcasts multiple times when they get published every Thursday. And I write down things in my little black book about ideas that came up, maybe a correction that needs to be made, maybe an idea that came up that we didn't go deep on, that I'd like to spend more time on, just different things like that. And I do it on my video journal. So if you want to join me over there, go to youtube.com/thezinvideo. So those are two of the playlists I do. And I post a bunch of other random stuff. But and there'll be more coming out on the YouTube page as well. Trying to build that up because I really enjoy that process as well. And then the last thing I'll mention is I'm still doing the GoFundMe campaign for the podcast, which is gofundme.com WOTS podcast or /WOTS podcast. I'll have the link to it in the description of this podcast on WOTSpodcast.com. So check it out, and yeah, hopefully you'll have, if you have a few dollars to donate to the cause. What I'm doing is trying to raise money to buy new microphones for the podcast, because the microphones I'm using aren't designed for this process. I want to get more broadcast style microphones. The microphones I'm using are more for like recording studio settings, musical settings. They're really touchy. They don't do well if somebody kicks a mic stand or blows too hard into them. It just causes a lot of havoc and a lot of booms and pops and things. So trying to get better mics for this process. So if you can support that, I'd love it. But if you don't have any money, that's cool too. Just go over to iTunes and post a review or share. I post all these on all my social networks, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I put a post on, but I don't know how to reshare off Instagram. But yeah, lots of places to reshare these things and help get the word out. And the best way to do that when you reshare is actually to say something about it, especially on Facebook. If you hit the share button on Facebook, make sure you say, hey everybody, check out this cool podcast, or check out my friends, they were on this podcast, or something of that nature. Be sure to add to it, because just hitting share, people are like, what? I don't care. But if you put your voice into it, that's when it becomes important to your friends. And that's something you should keep in mind for everything you're doing, because this right here, Word on the Street, is a platform for the Seattle music scene to talk about the Seattle music scene and to share ideas and learn about each other and grow and do more. So when you're sharing more your friends' shows, your shows, it's important to tell why it's important to you. So anyways, keep that in mind. Thanks for joining Word on the Street version 91, and as always, party at the Moon Tower.